Hello guys, I'm Practical Programmer. In this video, I will teach you how to make a web application using Flask with Python. To get started with this, first you need to understand the basic concept about Flask. Let's continue. So what is Flask? Flask is a micro web framework that can be used to make web applications, APIs, and any other type of application on the web. It's extensible because you can resolve your web app features via extensions that Flask provides. Now let's see about the utilities. Here we can see many extensions or utilities that Flask support, like use database with an object relational mapping. In this case, the extension or module for this is known as SQL Alchemy. Also, request parsing is possible, which we can get information about the requests, like headers, body, and etc. However, we can configure our Flask app to receive files. The same happens with the feedback experience, where the server will confirm to the user when an action is done. We can do it using Flash module. And something important is that we can manage sessions and cookies. Finally, there's the templates engine, which we can use to make dynamic templates. And for this, is the Jinja 2 module. Let's see something about it. As I told you, Jinja allows us to render dynamic information that can be passed as parameter in the render template function, something like the first image, where the client accesses to the grid path and write an optional name as a server path. We pass the name as parameter, and in the HTML file that we are rendering, we can set the variable that is receiving, like the second image. We create a title, let's say hello, and we are getting the variable that we are receiving with the brackets. So by that way, we can make dynamic templates. And obviously, there are many forms to make dynamic templates, like the template inheritance. Now that you already know the basic concept about Flask, we can start coding. Before that, we need to install the Flask library. And how we do that? We execute this command, python and this parameter. We call pip, and with pip we want to install the Flask library. And it will install the Flask library. When you already have the Flask library, we can continue creating the environment. So let's create the source folder. In this source folder, the folder will contain all the folders and files of the project. So let's create main.py file. With this file, we are going to create the web server using Flask. And this web server have templates, and have routes. Now we can start decoding this file. Now we say that from Flask we want to import the Flask class, and we need to instance this class. So let's store that in this variable. And we instance this class, and this class receives a parameter. This parameter is the name app or the context. So let's specify the name. Without the context or app name, the web server will give many errors. So you need to pass the parameter because it's required. Now we run the app under this conditional. If name is equal to the main file, we want to run with this method, we are executing the web server, and the host, we can pass the host that it's optional and the port. So we're going to specify that we are debugging, so we mark the parameter as true, and let's try to execute this app. Here in the terminal, I into the project, and we finally execute the file python main.py. And how we can see, it passed an URL, so we copy this address, and you need to go to the web browser and paste that. When we access to this address, we receive the error. It's because we haven't defined any routes. So let's define that. To define the routes, we need to create a file called I don't know, routes.py. Here we need to import from Flask, import blueprint. Also the render play function. Now we're going to store in a variable, and this variable can be called root. I think that's root. Root is equal to blueprint. And here we can see that it receives two parameters. The first parameter is the name of the blueprint. In this case, we were going to call it home, and from the port name we are pasting the context. So the next thing that we have to do with this syntax, we are going to define a route. So we call it routes, and with this method call it route, we're going to define and path. In this case, it's the main path. So when the client accesses this path, it will execute a function. The function is called home, and this function will render a template. And this template can be index.html. So if we try to execute the app or access to this path, nothing happens because we haven't imported this file. So let's do that. From routes import the routes variable. We are importing this variable. So let's register app.register blueprint. What we are going to register? This blueprint, call it routes or call it home. So with that we can test the app, and when we try to access the URL, we receive an error because this file doesn't exist. Here we can see template not found. So let's create the index.html. And to write fastly the basic struct from HTML with this expression, and we press enter, and we got the basic structure about HTML. So let's create title home, and when we try to access that path again, home did not return valid response. Okay, we have an error. It's because the function needs to return a value, and this value will be that template or the file in this HTML. And now, when we try to access this path, we got home, and we finally got that. And that's the basic about creating a basic application. So now we can define more routes. We can define a route called with this path name. We're going to use the Jinja to render template. Example greet name, and this will receive a parameter. This parameter will be name. By default, is known, and this will render a template. But we forget something, and it's to return the render template, and that is greet.html. And now we need to create a template, greet.html. Firstly, we write a basic structure about HTML, and here we can say hi, and we import the variable that we are placing here. Name, it's equal name, or it can be, for example, person. So we use the variable that we are passing when we are rendering a template. Person. Okay. Now when we try to access, execute this app again. So when we try to access to this path, for example, here's an error, and this error is, let's define a route greet. Okay. Now when we try to access to this path, greet, and we write a name, for example, Alex, it returns hi Alex. And what happens if we doesn't pass nothing? Okay, and request your was in the phone. Okay, this only works when we pass a parameter or this path. Example Fabian or Pablo. It returns hi Pablo. How this happens? This happens because we are rendering a template. When we are calling this function, we are rendering the template, but with variables. For example, we define a variable called person, and this will be passed to this HTML, and we can call that variable, that parameter, person. And that's the way that we can use the Jinja to template. This function is used by Jinja to rendering template. So by that way we can make our first web application. we can add more things like, for example, a paragraph, lorem, and we will try access. We got this, and that's all. I hope that you have learned something from this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to give your like. Bye bye.